Good to start? All right, good morning, everyone. Super excited to be here. This is my third year attending SONiC India. And this is the largest independent SONiC event right now in the world. And shows, what Ashay said, growing from 1 day to 2 days because of demand. And you can see the names and the logos. It's like growing and growing. So for me, it's super exciting to be in a community that's growing, adding names that I would never guess they'll be on this board, but now are part of it. So I'm not PG, I'm warning you already. So not the right guy to keep his mouth shut. So, we are part of this community, and like I said, super excited. I'm also glad that this is not an AI conference with everything Liwa said. If you look at the agenda, this is very refreshing to go to a conference where not 99% of the agenda is about AI. Even Jensen said AI is 2 companies, half of NVIDIA revenues come from almost 2 companies. So it's not widely deployed. What people care, what I am pushing, what I'm asking the community to push is enterprise adoption. And in enterprise adoption, what we need to work as a community is first to reduce the why not. You come to companies never heard of SONiC, and most enterprises that we go, now they hear, unlike 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they heard about SONiC, but we need to reduce the anxiety level of why not SONiC. So what I'm going to talk about, lifecycle management. We all have mobile phones, right? One day you come and you woke up and hey, your phone updated. How nice, right? Good for Google, good for Apple that they perfected this, so that we can all use it. It's simple. It doesn't work like that yet in networking. So what we are trying, and I'm going to talk about, is how to make it simple. A little bit about BE. We are part of the ecosystem. So we are kind of the layer on top of SONiC that makes it easy to deploy. The networking companies did an excellent job over the years to package everything. They gave you one solution, hardware, software, lifecycle. In an open community, it's comes in pieces. But going back to why not, when we talk to enterprises, they want to see it all packaged together. They don't want to go mix and match. Yes, they are the DIYers and, I'm going to do the Ansible this and do that and do that. And yes, there are those guys. But the majority are not those guys. The majority just want the network to work and the tools to it. So we are part of the ecosystem to make it. We are a product company, no sales. We also only work with partners. So you'll see us, working and collaborating with a lot of partners based in the US. Back to my initial statement, super excited about to be in this community. If you look at what happened last year and this year, Gartner predicts that by, almost half of the organization will have something to do with SONiC. And what organizations, as Dave said, research institutions, universities, hotels, hospitals, companies that, they were really traditional, and they're all moving to SONiC. In OCP, in October, I'm giving a talk with a very large Japanese conglomerate about their SONiC journey. And they had all the reasons why not. But over a period of almost 2 years, we show them let's switch from the why not to why yes. And we're going to talk about the why yes in OCP. The challenge is, with SONiC, there's the community, but I don't want to ask show of hands how many people were able to deploy to the community SONiC, so we'll skip that. But there's multiple enterprise distributions. There are companies that develop their own distributions. What it does for the end users, a challenge to manage it, and I'm going to address that. So if we, like Dave said, if we want to bring SONiC down to the enterprise, and I'm not looking down at them, it's just the different crowds. They don't have, the teams that Microsoft has to deploy that. They have a very limited resources. We're talking to a very large university right now. There's 2 guys and few students, so a very large university. So how to do that? Well, the first thing is we need to address is their fear, right? They buy from the current incumbent, hey, if problem, call me. They don't want to know, they don't want to get the situation where they deploy SONiC, it's like, who am I calling? I need to troubleshoot it, I need about this, who address, you need to pay. So there's a little bit of fear there. Lack of operational know-how. It's a new thing. It's a container-based. It's a different architecture of a network operating system. So, they don't have those skills to do that. The SONiC, with all the advancement of the pens, et cetera, there's still challenges for the community part of the edge features. I know we're working on it, but there's enterprise distributions out there that address that. So again, if you want to deploy something that is working today in the enterprise, there are not too many options in the SONiC. And last but not least, my favorite topic is Lifecycle. It's like, how do we update those things? I met a company in Japan. They have 2,000 SONiC switches in deployment. They don't know how to update the NOS. They don't have a system how to update the NOS, in a simple, graceful way without causing outages. So it's okay. We deploy it, and then people are like, oh, how do we maintain it? That's the wrong approach to do that. So I'm going to talk about that. So just put your eyes at the customer seat. And by the way, it's great to see NPCI, who is a user, talking about, joining the SONiC from different eyes. We have EPFL. It's a large university, one of the top universities in the world, from Switzerland, joined the SONiC community. So you're not start seeing more and more users coming there, because you sit and you're like, oh, I've developed this amazing tool, but then the customer looks at it like, oh, that's not so amazing. So if you put yourself in the eyes of the users, they care about those things: how networks are operated, how are they maintained, and how are they optimized. Liwa talked about optimization, about this. That's great, but I want to focus on how networks are maintained. The goal is to do fire and forget. Like, talked about the iPhone, right? There is, none of us wake up in the morning and say, I have an upgrade of the phone. I'm very, anxious about it. Like, it's a no issue. Same should be in your network. But the networks are becoming larger and larger, denser and denser, and more critical to the operation of every business, right? So the idea, what we're doing is zero downtime, do everything with a graceful shutdown. So basically drain the flows, that, put the scheduler, and just let it is. Our largest deployment has 4,000 switches, and and you don't want to all them reboot at the same time, DHCP pinging everything and taking down the network because like everybody's trying to get the load. No, here you're going to do different parts. You can do functional. I tried to do a live demo, but it doesn't work with the VPN and everything here. I'm happy if somebody interested, I'll show you after in one of the breaks. So that, but physical maintenance, it takes 24 hours a day. Based on the load, based on the logic of your network. For example, if you have a very large finance department, usually they do their processing. Yeah, Ashay took me down. All right, they do it over the night, so you don't want to update their switches during the night, but you want to but production is during the day, so you can break it apart. The network needs, from the eyes of the users, they want a turnkey solution with off-the-shelf components. And I think, with open networking, it's kind of like going that way, right? I mean, OCP started it, then came the Linux Foundation. We all, have these turnkey solutions that are off the shelf. If you have a problem with, one specific, part of your supply chain, you can move, no problem, or very limited. So the idea is to have something that's off the shelf. You want something that's dynamic. You don't want, network that is, everything is manual, you're static. You want something that discovers itself, that can heal itself. I know you heard a lot in the past, the self-healing networks. Well, it's coming. It's not, maybe not 5 years ago, but today we start seeing more and more with the advent of AI, agentic AI is coming into self-healing networks. So all these buzzwords from 5-6 years ago, actually now it's becoming a reality. So we in API first, networks on API. We are working on Gen AI with the resource management, the GPU management, et cetera. We have an API, boom, we did integration within a week. So if you have a very solid API, you can add integration to many, many things. So API first. The topic of my discussion here is like lifecycle, but day 2 and beyond. I'll give you an example. So there are configuration drift. We're not naming names, but somebody upgraded their own NOS from one version, 3 dot something to 4 dot something, and they moved from native to standard. Should be no issue, right? I'm just upgrading this, but they changed the naming convention. So if you push this update to your network, suddenly all the interfaces will change. So it's like, before you started for ETH0, now it changed. You upgrade, suddenly everything goes down. So what we do is if you use our orchestration, before we deploy it, we don't just deploy it. We are the ones who, distributing that. We do our own testing. And then when we tell the customers we change all the interfaces. So we do that. And this is part of the responsibility, because at the end, if you do that, people say, oh, SONiC doesn't work. But SONiC works. It's just how it works sometimes changes. So if you have a drift between distribution, it needs to be documented. And what we're suggesting is document as a code, not just as a note. So there's some examples. We have, I call it full night's sleep. I don't know if network admins get a full night's sleep, because usually everything happens at night. But what we're telling people is you have to deploy best practices all the time, every time. Now, best is a function of time. Today's best is not going to be tomorrow's best. Things are changing. You saw SONiC, 2 releases a year. So these things are, very, very dynamic. And what we as a community need to agree on, what is the best practice? Not, just, hey, we are super excited to add SRv6. That's a great feature. But how do we recommend people use it? And there's the biggest brains in networking in the SONiC community. Look at these names, right? You saw the addition of the new members, et cetera. So it's like, what are the best practices? What do we recommend? I advocate many times to have a user group. Users coming and say, hey, what we need, what we want. And we as a community need to tell them, hey, we think you should go this way. We're working with 5 distribution of SONiC. Best for each one of them is different. And we need to, and sometimes we have to tell them, hey, to tell the customers, this is not the best practice. If you do it, you're going to have some problems now, tomorrow, down the road. So can we have a recommendation, not just release notes? What is best practices? I talked about the configuration drift, but on the distribution upgrades and drifts, but it's also configuration drift for the customers. What does it mean that if I do this static configuration and I change things down the road, it's like am I going to create a gap down the road? So it's like, do I have this device and now I replaced it with something else, And I don't have this ability to to see that it's not supported anymore. So configuration drift is a big thing, also in terms of best practice. But again, there needs to be a mechanism for change and control. Maintenance. I do my best to go to a dentist every at least few months just to make sure that everything okay, they clean, etc. Why? Because root canal is extremely painful, extremely expensive. So you want to do the little maintenance, not to get to the big problem. Your devices, the minute you deploy them, they become part of your technical debt. Sorry, the customer's devices. Once you deploy a device, it's part of your technical debt. It's working against you. So if you're not going to take care of it, it's going to come bite you, where. So you have to maintain it, software upgrades, patch releases, all of that always at the best level. And we have some customers that they have devices that we come in the campus, very little in the data center, that are been running for, like Tricom, that's running out of 8, 9 years. And I tell them, God, you guys are believers. Only God can, help you, make sure that network is running. I'm shocked it's still running, but it is. So in the campus, right, I'm not talking about the data center, it's a jungle out there. And they're not maintained, and a lot of times don't even know what they have. So you have to maintain, you have to be proactive on that. And there is machine learning. The machines, AI, we're a big proponent. I think last year I talked about it, how we are integrating AI tools for managing. Now, AI tool for me is not OpenAI, right? AI tools for networking is not like, hey, OpenAI, I can run, some scripts or something like that. It's not OpenAI wrapper, with all the respect to a lot of tools out there. It needs to be dedicated for network, understand your network, live in it. AI is data. You need to have a data structure. You need to have the right tools to that. Obviously, I'm not suggesting everybody write their own, AI models, but use it specifically in your network, and use it to optimize and fine-tune your network. So, and fine-tune is not necessarily in the sense of training, but fine-tune is how you manage and operate your network. So I want to talk about a customer we have. I think we have now 5 different governments around the world that deployed, with us. This is a customer we had with Dell, and it's the Australian government. And I was shocked when I went to Australia. We have already 4 government entities in Australia, different entities. This is the Ministry of Finance. And they're using SONiC. By the way, the government of India, ONGC, another customer of ours, also using SONiC. So governments are using SONiC for reasons that I'm sure we're going to hear from Shiva from NPCI, but in the other governments that we're talking about, they're talking about resiliency. They cannot rely on a single vendor in case of disruption of supply. We're not living in a good time in the world today, right? It's a very shaky world. So it's like everybody's preparing, hey, what if something will happen? So SONiC is a solution or a part of the answer. So go back to this customer, and we did this deployment, etc. Customers usually send you a huge email. Here are the problem with this, and then it's like we deploy it. You hear nothing, and you're like, hey, everything okay? Did we finish? And oh, it worked. I'm like, nobody calls you to say, hey, here's the great thing you took, and hey, it's worked. Thank you. Bye. So this customer, they deployed close to 60 switches, 4 sites. So 2 data center, and then they had 2 campuses hanging from the data center. Interesting, they use CLOS in the campus. First customer I had, the CLOS in the campus. Once we deployed it, they need immediately to upgrade, to add some features for those edges. So we just, They had the packages, they came, we have a scheduler, different parts. I mentioned about graceful shutdown, right? If you have an MLAG, you're gonna, drain the traffic on one side and then upgrade it and then test. And when it comes back, then you, mark it back to service, take the other one, back in service, then the other one out of service, and then drain the flows over there. So they upgraded, and basically 0 issues. Now, 60 switches, could be 600, could be 6,000, the same, very scalable. So this customer is used to use the tools. They were, one of the names here, customer before, and they migrated to SONiC, and they used to very good simple tools to use it. So we as a SONiC community have to do some catch-ups with the traditional incumbents. So this was a very, I mentioned, very successful. Since then, we added 3 more entities because of that. I wanted to do a demo, but like I said, it's not possible, but happy to do that because I want to show you how to make things look simple. And I have 2 things that are close to my heart, and I'm pushing every conference. One is enterprise adoption, make it simple. And the other one is the responsibility of us as a community. So, I don't have call to actions. I'm a little bit different. So I'll start with this. Elegance. For me, elegant is, the best example is iPhone, that my 3-year-old daughter can go and manage it and like she's an expert, So everybody can manage it. It looks simple, but it's very, very complicated. It was, elegance in software was defined in this research paper. It's using Maslow hierarchy of needs to define the elegance in system architecture. But, we as a community, and I'm talking about, the ecosystem and the other elements, need to make things easy to consume. It's like an easy and unified, you need to kind of like almost come together and it's like, hey, how can you make it? Because, we want to have a tide that rises all the boats, right? To like lift up all the boats here together. And if we make it easy to consume, the customers will come because we need to reduce the why not and move to why yes. So that's one request. And another thing is, please make sure that you are responsible at what you communicate. Because I've been several cases where people come and say, hey, SONiC doesn't work, or it's not ready. And I tell them, it's funny because we've been deployed a couple hundred sites, couple hundred networks, some of the most demanding, some, very US government, other things like, why you say that? Oh, because this failed. I'm like, so what? One car has a flat tire, suddenly you write off all the cars? So please be mindful of what you do because it has impact on all of us. So yeah, that's and I'm not trying to kind of like tell people, hey, it's you or this, but just make sure that you are understanding you're part of the community and what you do has effect on all the community. With that, I'll leave some time for questions. Thank you. Go ahead, Chintan.
I have no questions.
Oh, thank you. No questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the hardware for the Australia?
Dell. Yeah, Dell hardware. But we have deployments with 3 other hardwares.
So is it Broadcom?
But we We are Ethernet only company. We support both SONiC and Cumulus on the same in the same fabric. And for data center, in the campus we support every other NOS, so we could do co-management. Just in the data center we do Cumulus and that. You can even do a dual load, Cumulus and on the same box. Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about SONiC fingerprints, right? Like I think you explained briefly that it is just to make configuration change, for example, this interface naming convention change or something, agnostic, your provisioning agnostic to that, maybe we are using something like SONiC fingerprints. Can you elaborate more, like what exactly it is, how it works?
So, you know, when you do the release, there's a bit of a, I don't know where the feedback is coming, but when you, you know, when you have the SONiC version that you're doing, what we're suggesting is to have an automated way where it's going to be a code that is part of your distribution that tells what's the difference from the previous. So we can just ingest it, you know, in a simple way and kind of adapt to it. So if there is example, you know, I mentioned about the interfaces, we can, you know, quickly adjust when we push the update. It will be automatically kind of adjusted in, so we don't have to kind of find it out later or some notes that are in the text. Yeah, so just leave it, as I mentioned, code, like leave it as a code there that you can, you know, maybe have a common way to put a code for software updates, you know, kind of for the distribution itself. Well, I think that's it. All right. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot for your session. This is Bala from Nokia. I understand most of the aspects you covered at the NBA side. When you come to southbound, I couldn't get how we manage it. For example, the recent issue on SD, okay, stream telemetry from vendor SOI. So how maybe can you throw some light how you mitigate such issues when you say the manageability of nodes?
You're talking about the telemetry, how we can absorb it from different vendors, or?
No. So for example, the vendor SOI is a variable entity. You listed a lot of entities which have been covered up using code instead of a comment. But the SOI layer may not be managed by that way. So if there are issues, there are intricate development happened by Broadcom, because I broadly work with Broadcom. So there are multiple vendors. So how do you handle such scenarios for full night sleep?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So we work with the SONiC. The only site we work with and they have a tool to address it is the Broadcom. So we have a collector that collects IFA and mod and BST from the Broadcom side. But usually we work only in the SONiC, and we support GNMI, mostly GNMI for our telemetry. We have it fully integrated. We do have for other, you know, even use multiple protocols like SNMP, V3, or so, but typically we don't work with the SI. The only company who work with the SI is Broadcom. All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity again. It was great to see you all.